Okay, we're in chapter 3, again, 66 on the PDF, 101 if you're following along hard copy. And here we are writing in the middle. So when Ballinger talks specifically in this paragraph, he says, I now believe that writing that takes place in the middle of the research process, the note-taking stage, may be as important as, if not more important than, the writing that takes place at the end, composing the draft. Writing in the middle helps you take possession of your sources and establish your presence in the draft. It sharpens your thinking about your topic and is the best cure for unintentional plagiarism. I 100% agree with Ballinger on this point. The note-taking and the writing in the middle is crucial. This, you are really writing your paper. When we go to write your paper in May, you are going to have so much work and so many ideas. It will not be a matter of filling pages. It'll be a matter of focusing and saying what I want to really say. So that's what we are going to do today. And remember, when he talks about conversing, and we've talked about this before, it is like you are at a dinner party and you are hosting, you are the person in charge, you are seated at the head of the table. And all of the documentaries that you watched, the people you interviewed, the research that you read, the news article, the website that you saw, those are all individuals or people sitting at the table with you. But you are the one directing the conversation. So someone says something, you respond, someone else is like, oh, I thought this, and maybe they respond to someone else, and then you chime in. That is what conversation and note-taking should look like, this meshing and connecting of ideas. So that's what we are doing here. And we're going to practice. So remember, so you're going to want to put exercise 3.1 on a piece of paper. I'm going to do it digitally just so we can all see it here. So go ahead and label exercise 3.1 for yourself. And of course, I've done this once before, but we'll do it together, brand new. And this is the key. So when we are taking notes, and I'm going to read through this, they help us discover what we think and refine our point of view. But for this to happen, you have to actually interact with information rather than just a monologue, like jotting down what the author is saying. You want to engage in that conversation, talking with an author, questioning, agreeing, speculating, wondering, connecting, arguing. Obviously, you can do this in your head, but it's far more productive to have this dialogue through writing. So we're going to practice this. And this practice is going to be timed because we are more efficient when we're kind of focused in time like that. And I highly, highly encourage you when you're doing these note-taking activities, and we'll be doing this week. I see you all on Wednesday. And in the next week, we'll have several class periods, just like we have with the annotated bibliography dedicated to note-taking. I'm going to really encourage you to time yourself, because when you're just like, oh, I'm going to take notes, you have like 45 minutes to work. It doesn't always work that way. Have a set amount of time to research, to pull your quotes, and then to react to them. The other thing I want to remind you of is in our freshman and sophomore classes, we teach that analytical body paragraph where you have concrete detail and commentary, and it's about 50-50. You have about 50% outside quotations and 50% like you're thinking and you're talking. But now you are seniors and now we are doing collegiate type writing. And so we want to have like 80 to 90% you and 10 to 20% outside information. Remember, your works cited is really only going to be about 6 to 8 sources, because it's going to be so much of your thinking and your ideas in this that we don't need to rely on other people's thinking, because we now have our own, which is kind of the goal of this paper. So we're going to try it, and we're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. So at the top of your paper, let's go ahead and put maybe what we think the inquiry question is. So I think this inquiry question is probably looking at like the binary genders of male and female and attractiveness, right? They probably focus that very specifically, because when I look at this from Harper's Magazine, this is the little quotation that we pulled. So kind of questioning, like one of the questions that we have with our inquiry question would be, how do women see men's attractiveness? Harper's Magazine recently reported the following: the portion of men whose attractiveness is judged by US women to be worse than average, 4 out of 5. So they held 5 men up there and they asked a group of women, how many are attractive or like about like worse than average? They said 4 of them out of 5. So only 1 is like good looking, I would assume by this. So the first thing I did was I write down my quotation, right? And you should do this too. I should put it in quotation because it's not my words. And then we don't have Harper's Magazine. We don't have the works cited here, but in your notes, we'll talk about always, of course, having the works cited entry at the top. And then notice what my brain did first. The first step was to say, what is the quotation saying? Right? Like, what is it saying? What happens is when you start writing that, you're writing plagiarism. So we don't want to just repeat what it says. We want to interact with what it says. So we're going to do that for 5 minutes, agreeing, talking where our ideas go, disagreeing, speculating. If you have a story, if you have an experience, if something else comes up, you're going to write that too. So we're going to write for 5 minutes together. Any questions on what I'm asking you to do? Notice how I have a letter at the top left. You should also have a letter, whether it's handwritten or typing, does not matter. I prefer to typically handwrite my notes and then I switch to digital. That letter is when you stop thinking and you don't know what to write, you write that letter because you need to physically keep writing. Even if you're like, I don't know what to write anymore, you need to keep your hand moving, keep your mind moving because something else will come. Okay, 5 minutes, ready, set, go. You're about halfway done, 2.5 minutes. All right, finish up where you are on. Okay. I'm going to give you a minute to read what I wrote here, and then you are going to share what you wrote. So, okay, so we're going to do kind of the second half, and then we're going to go back to these notes and do some different things with them, which is another step. So this was our first one that we did. We're going to do another writing piece, and this, of course, is in step 2. And look at the questions they ask. So you're going to have a section of Bruce Ballinger that oftentimes I find it's difficult sometimes to push your own thinking. But when people ask you a question that's really helpful, that's oftentimes when you go in and talk to professors during office hours, that's what they'll do. They ask you questions. So that might be helpful for you. The second step is on the opposite. So 5 more minutes. And we're going to think about the portion of women whose attractiveness is judged by US men to be worse than average, 2 out of 5. I see some of your faces not believing this. So maybe you could write about that. What do you make of men's more generous attitude towards women? Does it surprise you? How do you explain both of these facts together? What does this information say to you about gender and attractiveness? We're going to spend 5 minutes fast writing on this. So if you want to write up your portion, you can. So I have my second one here. I'm going to put quotations around it. And I will set our timer and we will write for 5 minutes. Ready, set, go. All right, finish up the sentence you're on. And we're going to do the same thing. You can read what I have there for about 3 minutes, and then you're going to share with your partner what you have. I want to talk about some specific things that I did in my writing, and I want to show you how I would look at them, because then I'm going to have you look at your own writing and look at them. So a couple things I want to see. Did you see how with my writing, apparently I like to laugh when I start things, but in my writing, it has some different clusters, or like we would call them lines of inquiry in IB, right? I have kind of this biological line of inquiry. I kind of have this like social media with like filters and that type of thing. And then I also have, well, I guess the biology would be the t-shirt thing too. I felt like I had a third one. Oh, I had this, I'm really curious too, how research has changed, especially when this was, right, when it was published, what that looked like, and how attractiveness, I think, is different in the LGBTQ community, what that would look like when you pull all of those type of things. So I had a lot of different ideas. So what I would probably do is I might highlight these different colors for myself, right? So I would highlight, and then some things I also would maybe highlight are when I ask questions, because I tend to ask questions and I might highlight those. So later on, I might want to go back and answer some of these questions, because the thing is, what your brain is going to want to do is answer these questions as you're writing them. It's going to want to open 3 other tabs, start reading that, and then you spent 45 minutes doing something else, not your note taking. Yes, I see it on your faces. You all do that, right? We all do that. So staying really disciplined with our thinking and in the moment is going to be important, because we will have time to go back to our notes, annotate them, look up those questions, and do a second step. We'll be doing some what we call re-researching at that point. We'll dip into our research again and see what else we need. But this is just a point where we're kind of looking to see what our thinking is. So I want you to spend some time looking over your writing and see if you too have some lines of inquiry in your thought, because this is what we're going to be going to with our note taking.